on, everybody, and welcome to the Animation Podcast, a weekly podcast about all things animation brought to you by FilmBook. My name is Matt Brunet, but some of you may know me as AniMat from my YouTube channel, Electric Dragon 505, home of web series that are all about animation, including Animation Look Back and AniMat's reviews. If this is your first time here in the Animation Podcast, well, welcome aboard there, sailor. Let's little AniMat here take care of you. But specifically, though, it shall talk about the latest news that has happened this week. So for starters, I shall be looking into the big changes that's going on at the Oscars that's kind of shaking up the animation community a little bit. Then afterwards, we will be looking into The Boss Baby and Smurfs The Lost Village, and how is it that at the box office, one was a lot more successful than the other. Then afterwards, we will be looking into an all-new short series called Star Wars Forces of Destiny. Then we will be looking into a trailer of a Studio Ponoc movie that will eventually probably become the spiritual successor of Studio Ghibli, with their first film being Mary and the Witch's Flower, and then finally we will end things off with AniMat's Pick of the Week. If you want to check out more episodes of the Animation Podcast, then all you have to do is head on down to FilmBook, that is film-book.com, by searching the Animation Podcast. You can also email us at podcast@filmbook.com with the Animation Podcast in the subject line. Okay, and so first things first, let us talk a little bit about the Oscars. Now, recently, there has been a little event that occurred that really made a lot of news. Not only did a lot of fans send me articles about this, but there have been a lot of numerous of articles from big name film media websites like Variety, The Wrap, The Hollywood Reporter, and all that kind of stuff. They have been reporting this, and they are expressing a little bit of concern, which is stirring up a little bit of controversy in the animation community, and that is the little changes that they have done in terms of the voting process for the nominations for Best Animated Feature. Alright, now beforehand, let me just tell you right now that what the Academy did is that they decided to go and change some rules in terms of different categories. Like, the biggest example is in the Best Documentary Feature category, where they decided they will no longer accept miniseries to be a part of the Best Documentary Feature category, because it kind of stirred up a little bit of controversy when the miniseries OJ Made in America recently won for Best Documentary Feature, which now they will just stick it to just movies. If you're a movie and you're a documentary, then you can be in this category. So at least they won't do that kind of slip up again. But then you got the Best Animated Feature category. So you might be wondering, what is the big change that they decided to do? Alright, so I'm going to be going into my source here on Cartoon Brew, and it says, from the Academy press release, invitations to join the Academy Feature Nominating Committee will be sent to all active Academy members rather than a select craft-based group. Voting in the nominations round will now be preferential instead of based on a numerical scoring system. Members participating on the nominating committee may view films in their theatrical run or at other screenings through the Academy streaming site or on DVDs/screeners to qualify to vote. Now, beforehand, what they would do with Best Animated Feature is pretty much like any other category. They would give it to the hands of a specific group that would specialize in animated short films and feature animation. Like, they would have an entire team that would be devoted to that, and they would go and vote for what would be worthy enough to be in the nominations. But what the Academy decided to do is that for voting the nominations, it's going to be open to any and all members, so that now they can go and join in and go, so that they can come in and vote for whatever they want. Now, some people might be wondering, and like they can easily jump into conclusions and think like, oh, are they just doing that so that they can have more people voting for movies like the Lego Movie, with all that controversy about all those butthurt fanboys over the fact that the Lego Movie didn't get nominated for an Oscar? You know, I kind of say that as a joke, but that could legitimately be the reason. Let me go a little bit more into my source here, right over here. And apparently, it says that in an article on The Wrap, they reported that there have been internal debates within the Academy about finding ways to eliminate old school animation and focus more attention onto commercial CGI projects. The committee had been under increasing criticism in recent years for shunning films like the Lego Movie and showing a marked preference for hand-drawn or stop-motion films over CG movies. The move should substantially increase the number of votes in that category and perhaps lessen the bias towards old-school animation. So that's kind of the big fear that people have with this new rule change, is that the more people that are going to be coming in to vote, then it could be a lot harder for independent animated features to at least go and get a nomination. Now, there are some people who did express a little bit of their concern, but specifically, some of them actually did reach out to probably the most well-known distributor of independent animated features nowadays, which is G-Kids. It says right here, G-Kids founder Eric Bertman spoke with Cartoon Brew this afternoon about the new rule changes. He expressed hopefulness that voters would still respond to good filmmaking in the same way that the broader Academy has responded to good filmmaking in live action. G-Kids has made a name for ourselves by championing a broader definition of animation as a cinematic art form on par with live action, to the extent that we can find films that exemplify or approach that aspirational goal. I think that people are going to respond to that. They have also commented to Variety, who also, they have also written an article regarding this issue that are independent animated features going to be screwed by this whole change. And they stated right here, you have to want to be a part of the committee, and that's generally a good thing. When we first came into the business, people said we have to do huge advertising, but we sort of forged our own path on the belief that a good film will find its way. And I still think that's true. And I'd say we're fortunate enough to be established enough that I hope whoever is on the committee will consider G-Kids films. But it's not necessarily just that. It's not the big reason why they're doing this is not necessarily so that they can go and hopefully nominate movies that can make people happy and not spur out controversies like the whole Lego Movie thing. Another reason why they mention this, I think it's I think it says so right here. Part of the problem has always been the inclusion of short films in the animated features branch. One source says that says talks has been underway for years to split them up, and that may well be on the horizon, but for now the organization is simply opening things up for a wider cross-section, for allowing members interested in voting in to opt, crossing their fingers that will mean more people to vote. And that's part of the reason why. Oh, there we go. Sorry, this is the little quote that I think I was looking for. But the thing has always been a little different in this category. Previously, committees are supposed to be a 50-50 composition of animators and members from the other branches, though that process has always been opaque, and it frequently yielded a low voter turnout, which is what the Academy is hoping to change with this shift. So the main goal with this entire change in the rules for voting for Best Animated Feature is more to go and encourage other voters so that there would be more people who can come in and vote for the Best Animated Feature category. But overall, the big thing that people are worried about the most about this entire change is if the more voters that they would bring in, then that would mean that the independent animated features would not necessarily have a chance. Like, they're just going to bring in voters that they're only going to vote for what they can recognize, and it's going to be filled with nothing but big name animated features from major studios, and that's pretty much it. And all the chances that any other independent animated feature would have in running in the race would pretty much be dashed. It's just what people are afraid of is just ignorant voters voting solely on what they are just familiar with and not based on how good is a movie or not. And what basically would happen is that people are just afraid that the best animated feature category at the Oscars would turn into the same one as in the Golden Globes, because 98% of the time, all they do is just vote for the big name animated feature. Like, it is extremely, extremely rare that they would vote for anything that would be independent, that's not distributed by a big name studio or anything like that. It's just like the last time that it ever happened, or the only times that it ever did happen, was the 2010 The Illusionist by Sylvain Chomet, and recently with My Life as a Zucchini. Literally, that's it. And because of that, people are worried that there are going to be some studios out there that won't even have a chance to go and get another Oscar nomination, because some of them really do need that Oscar nomination to really get the public's attention to know what they are. In fact, there are some studios out there that really launched into massive popularity because their films got nominated for Best Animated Feature. And the best example I could find is actually with Cartoon Saloon. Because their films like The Secret of Kells and Song of the Sea got nominated at the Oscars, that actually got massive attention from the public, and they really grew their fan base to become such a beloved animation studio, and really what is currently like the big name animation studio in Ireland. Like, what does Ireland animation stand for? Like, they would go and point out to Cartoon Saloon. And this could pretty much mean for any other studio, like even like the Japanese anime ones, even Studio Ghibli films, in a way, they wouldn't even have a chance to go and get a nomination. And especially the quote that apparently from that Rap article that they stated that apparently the Lego Movie didn't get a nomination because apparently the people who were voting at the time had more of a bias for like the old school animation stuff. Honestly, that's a little bit hypocritical for them to say that apparently that the voters have more of a bias for something like The Tale of the Princess Kaguya or Song of the Sea, but like, it's not like they have a total bias on it. I mean, you still got other CG animated films that got nominated at the time, like How to Train Your Dragon 2 and Big Hero 6. In fact, if anything, this is pretty much pointing out that the Academy has more of a bias, and they want to go and pick out more of these CG animated film, the big name CG animated films, to just go and nominate more of those. And honestly, it's a little bit ridiculous. Maybe this is going to be a little bit of a controversial thing to say, but I feel like, worrying about the big name animation studio, like the big name animated films from major studios, worrying about them if they would get an Oscar nomination or not, it's kind of like the same thing as worrying about the rights of white straight people. You know what I'm saying? They're already privileged enough as it is, so they don't need any of that extra credit or those little extra rewards in order for them to feel safe and to feel more privileged as they already are. And that is why it is more important to go focus more on the minorities so that we can actually go and fight for equal rights. And it's the same thing for animated films. it is much more important that an independent animated feature that is struggling so hard to get its name across out there and just to get recognized by the public to get an Oscar nomination than to have something like Minions or Finding Dory getting an Oscar nomination when it already made $1 billion at the box office. I think they can live without getting that little extra credit of getting an Oscar nomination. You know what I mean? Like, they're fine enough as it is. They're already rewarded, okay? You know, like when people say, oh, it's not fair that something like Finding Dory or the Lego Movie didn't get a nomination. Does it really change anything? Does it really change the reputation of how they are as animated films? No, it shouldn't matter, really. And I mean, with this whole thing is that I feel like it's a little bit more ridiculous, and even I am actually afraid that this would ultimately undermine independent animated features. But there is one thing that I am a little bit curious about. Now, this is something that I don't know specifically, and I tried doing a little bit more research to see if this would be the case. But what I am trying to look for, and what I am curious about, is the rules on how to vote for Best Animated Feature. Did they forged it enough so that it could be fair on all grounds? What is going to make me feel safe about it is if there is this rule out there that would state that you are only allowed to vote if you looked at every single film in the shortlist for Best Animated Feature. Like, if you can do that, watch every single film out there, both popular and independent, both good and bad, and all that kind of stuff, if you're able to watch all that, then you should be allowed to vote. You know, if they're capable of doing that, then I would definitely be happy. That one, I would definitely be satisfied. At least it will give a chance for any of those animated films and even those independent animated films, you know, to actually get recognition from the voter, him or herself, to go and see that, you know, maybe if it has a chance or not. So if that rule can actually apply, then I don't think we should be worried whatsoever. But on the other hand, however, there is one good thing that I can see coming from all this. It would probably have to be over the fact that maybe this is going to change things up in terms of the Oscar nominations, you know? Like, maybe it won't be as formulaic as it is right now. Because the thing is that when you look back in the past nominations for Best Animated Feature at the Oscars, you do notice a little bit of a pattern. You'll find that there is always that one or two movies that came from either Disney or Pixar. You'll always find that one stop-motion film that either came from Laika or Aardman. And you'll always find that there is this independent animated feature. Like, there's always that one or two. And even like recently, like in the last list of Best Animated Features, you pretty much get that. Like, you got 2 Disney films with Zootopia and Moana. You got the stop-motion film with Kubo and the Two Strings. And you got 2 independent films with The Red Turtle and My Life as a Zucchini. So maybe with this new update, they can probably spice it and change things up. Who knows what could probably happen? Maybe we'll see a little bit more Disney films, or maybe we'll be seeing a lot more independent animated films. Considering that this year is not necessarily as strong of a year for animated features. Like last year, sure, we got a lot of amazing ones like Zootopia, Kubo and the Two Strings, Moana, Finding Dory, and all that kind of stuff. But this year, there isn't a lot that looks like we would be looking forward to, especially when we're going to get a lot of garbage movies. Like I know for a fact that everybody is dreading the Emoji Movie and also the Nut Job 2. And then we already got crap like The Boss Baby that doesn't look like it's holding promise and all that kind of stuff. But who knows? Maybe we'll end up seeing a lot more independent animated films actually get nominated and actually get recognized. Who knows what could possibly happen? And hopefully, Like, it could actually go and encourage the ultimate goal of trying to bring in more people to go and vote. That hopefully this could be a big wake-up call for the people in the animation branch to go and actually vote for what they feel like is right. It may be, maybe this is not the case that they wouldn't do anything, but let's just hope for the best on this part, that at least if it's going to change some things, let's hope that it'll be for the better. Otherwise, we'll be hearing a lot, like the Academy is going to be hearing a lot of bad stuff coming from the animation community. It's either they will get a lot of complaints or maybe the changes are going to be better. But the only concrete evidence that we will know how the changes are going to be going is going to be until January, when they will be announcing the list of nominations for next year's Oscars. So we'll just have to wait and see how it goes on that end. Okay, so for our next story right over here, we are going to be talking about the box office. And this is going to be a little bit of an editorial because I've always been very fascinated about what has recently happened this week, specifically with the films of The Boss Baby and Smurfs: The Lost Village. Now, when the year began, a lot of people were expecting that maybe The Boss Baby would be some kind of flop. It doesn't look like it has any promise, especially with a cheap little concept that it just looks like it's just going to be Alec Baldwin as a baby. And maybe there's going to be a lot more hope with the Smurfs, considering that this is the new rebooted Smurfs, and Sony looks like they are going to be more committed to make a better story with better animation, just make a better Smurf movie in general, so maybe that one could be a hit. But that looks like it's not the case whatsoever. When The Boss Baby was released in theaters on March 31st, during that weekend, it actually not only defeated the live action remake of Beauty and the Beast on its third weekend, but also it got on top of the box office with $50 million during the weekend. And even for an animated film, that is actually really, really good. But then you would have Smurfs: The Lost Village. A week later, it would actually start things off extremely low, only getting a total of $13 million. Not $30 million, just $13 million. And this is actually the worst opening that a Sony Pictures animation film can ever have. Even worse than what was previously held with the Smurfs 2 and Surf's Up, both of which got more than $17 million each. And that's pretty much it. So the big thing that I was thinking about was, where is it that The Boss Baby did right in order to become a hit, and where did Smurfs go wrong in order to become a flop? I thought about this for a while, and I have figured out 4 reasons onto why. So just listen up. All right, so the reason number 1 on how The Boss Baby got it right and how Smurfs got it wrong is the release date. That actually played a huge factor, especially with a box office titan like Beauty and the Beast. Here's the thing. With The Boss Baby, that was actually released just 2 weeks after Beauty and the Beast. And I couldn't think of a better place on where to release it, honestly, because it's actually far enough so that Beauty and the Beast wouldn't directly affect its box office performance, but it is still close enough to have audiences still interested to go see family pictures. Because in March, it was a huge year for movies. Or it was a huge month for movies, sorry about that. And especially, when it started, a lot of moviegoers already wanted to go and see films like Logan and King Kong, Kong Skull Island, and also the live-action remake of Beauty and the Beast. But there really isn't a lot for families that they could go and check out. They only had Beauty and the Beast. And they would still like to have that feeling to go and check out movies, considering in March, movies are actually a lot of what the big news is. And so when the Boss Baby came in, they decided to go and check that one out as well. So they already got a little break after Beauty and the Beast, so they want to go and immediately jump into the Boss Baby and just go and check that one out. Now, in the case of Smurfs: The Lost Village, that one was released when it was just too late. Because the thing is that families have already went to see both The Boss Baby and Beauty and the Beast. And during that time, they must have already spent a lot of money on it. Not just the tickets, but, you know, optionally they want to go get popcorn, or maybe they want to go and play in the arcade and stuff like that. So it can get pretty expensive. So there really isn't a lot of room to go and add into Smurfs into the mix. So they don't want to go and overspend it or waste too much time in the theaters, so they decided to ultimately skip out on the Smurfs. So yeah, it just came in when everybody already spent their money. And this would go for the same thing with moviegoers as well. They have already spent their money going to see Kong Skull Island, Logan, and Beauty and the Beast. And right now, they're just saving up to go and see Fate and the Furious, which would be released the week after Smurfs. So yeah, like Smurfs ended up being stuck between a rock and a hard place to go and get very little money, honestly. It didn't really work out for them at all. Now, reason number 2 on this box office event is actually the star of these movies. Who is it that the marketing really tried to advertise that the movie stars this? Now, with The Boss Baby, the biggest promotion is the fact that it stars Alec Baldwin. Like I've said time and time again, this is a movie where Alec Baldwin is just being Alec Baldwin as a baby. But here's the thing though, Alec Baldwin right now is currently one of the most popular actors, and his popularity gained a massive boost thanks to Saturday Night Live with his portrayal of Donald Trump. So yeah, Alec Baldwin is definitely like really big in the news, especially with whatever he's doing. So a movie where we see Alec Baldwin just being Alec Baldwin is definitely an appealing idea to people, so they want to go and check that out. Now, with Smurfs on the other hand, Sony didn't really try to advertise any celebrities that are featured in there. Like, they're not really trying to push the fact that it stars Demi Lovato or that it features Julia Roberts or anything like that. They want to make the Smurfs the stars, because this is supposed to be the brand new rebooted Smurfs, the all new Smurfs that is way better than how it is before. But the problem with that is that Sony played Boy Who Cried Wolf with the Smurfs. That's basically the whole story of how it ended up as a flop. Because the first time around, when Sony cried out, "Smurfs, Smurfs, Smurfs," people came rushing in to see what was going on, and then they realized, screw this, it's a piece of crap. And then suddenly, the second time that it happened, that Sony cried, "Smurfs, Smurfs, Smurfs," like, a significantly less amount of people came in to see it, and they realized, screw it, it's a piece of crap again. And then, the third time around, Sony tried to cry out, "Smurfs, Smurfs, Smurfs, this time it's the real Smurfs. This one is going to be a lot more true to what Peyo did. This is the real Smurfs. Come on, go and check it out. It's fully animated. Come on, there's no Neil Patrick Harris." And at that point, very few people came in to see. I know maybe some people would think it's a little typical of me to say it, but it's Sony Pictures Animation. They don't trust them to make a movie about the Smurfs. Like, debatably, I could say that, like, people don't trust them to make a movie at all, but that's another story altogether. But yeah, that's the thing, is that they don't trust Sony making a Smurfs movie. If it were in the hands of another company, like maybe like Warner Brothers or Paramount, then they'll be a lot more open to see a brand new rebooted Smurfs, like the Smurfs that will have a second chance. But they don't trust Sony anymore with making Smurf movies, and that's why it didn't really work out. Now, the third reason that I have is actually going to be the animated film that came out before it. Now, this is a little bit similar to the explanation of the release date, but this one has a little bit of a connection. Like, I've seen comments and different articles talking about it, and it is actually very interesting. Now, when you look at The Boss Baby, the last time an animated feature was released in theaters was the Lego Batman movie. Now, I know that there are some people that can debate, depending on where you are, that in between that there was either Rock Dog or Ballerina or anything like that. But in terms of like a big name animated feature that was released by a major studio and got like massive recognition worldwide and was in more than 3,000 theaters, yeah, that is definitely the Lego Batman movie. And that film was released on February 10th. And in between that and The Boss Baby, which, again, that film was released on March 31st, you got more than a month and a half of no animation. So audiences are going to be very thirsty for an animated film. So at that point, like, even if the movie would be good or bad, whatever, people are going to take it. And especially the fact that it is coming from DreamWorks Animation, which currently right now, DreamWorks Animation has a lot more credibility and a much bigger reputation than Sony Pictures Animation. Like, they would go in and try to believe them. You know, they would go and try to, like, go see that movie. They want to immediately go to that one. Now, let's look at Smurfs: The Lost Village. The last time an animated feature was released before that one was literally freaking the week before, The Boss Baby. People were already they already got their first quenched by The Boss Baby. They don't need any more. I mean, maybe if they want to have a little bit of extra, if they're not fully satisfied with it, maybe they'll go see the Smurfs. But other than that, no. They've already got what they have with The Boss Baby, so there's no real rush to go see something like the Smurfs. And then the fourth and final reason, this is not related to the release date or anything like that. This has to do more with the movies themselves, and that is the critics. What do the critics say about these movies? Now, it is true that debatably, both Smurfs: Lost Village and The Boss Baby, both of them, they're kind of on the same level. They're both mediocre at best. Like, that's the best way to put it. You'll see that people would either rate it between like 4 out of 10 to 6 out of 10, or just like 2 to 3 stars and all that kind of stuff. They're just saying that it's kind of a generic kids film for both of them. But here's the thing though. With The Boss Baby, it doesn't really need the critics in order to go and be successful. Like I said before, like I said several times before, this is a movie where Alec Baldwin is just being Alec Baldwin as a baby. Anybody who is interested to go see a movie like that, they won't care what the critics say. They just want to see Alec Baldwin being just being entertaining. And in that case, like, it'll just depend on Alec Baldwin. If he can deliver on his performance, then at least people will be satisfied with that. And many critics, including myself, actually do say that, yeah, the movie sucks, but at least Alec Baldwin is pretty entertaining. He is funny. He brings in his own wit and charm and all that kind of stuff. So audiences are going to be a lot more satisfied with it, regardless of whatever the critics would say. But then you have Smurfs: The Lost Village. And on that end, that one needed the critics to be more positive about it. Because the thing with Smurfs is that, like I said before, the previous movies absolutely suck. Almost everybody hates those films, and it has a big reputation of just being a giant piece of crap. So the fact that they brought in this new Smurfs, like, on that end, people really want to know if it's actually really worth it, because they do have trust issues with Sony making another Smurf movie. And is it worth it? Well, not really, considering the fact that on Rotten Tomatoes, it says that less than 40% of critics actually like the film, or at the very least, would rate it something higher than 6 out of 10, or something like that. So it didn't necessarily work out well for the Smurfs. So yeah, that's kind of the overall thing on Why is it The Boss Baby ended up being a lot more successful than the Smurfs? The Boss Baby got a better release date than the Smurfs. It's like the star is a lot more appealing there. The last time an animated film was released, it was a long time ago, so don't be surprised if Captain Underpants is going to be a big hit for that reason as well. And as for the critics, well, one didn't need the critics as much as the other. So that's the overall thing. Now, what is it going to mean for these films individually and for the studio that made them? Well, I will say that for DreamWorks, at the very least, I am happy that things are actually going to be going good for DreamWorks, that they have found a successful movie, and that The Boss Baby could potentially help them financially. So at least that's good on that end. Now, does that mean we're going to see like an entire Boss Baby franchise? Maybe, maybe not. At the most that I could see, it would be a little bit foolish if they're going to go and make a sequel to The Boss Baby. Like, I wouldn't even be surprised if they decided to go and create one of their little Netflix series, but that's pretty much it. But as for Sony, on the other hand, I have stated before that Smurfs seems like the only chance that they could find some profitability, unless, in terms of Sony, that the ratings for the Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs series have been going through the roof, and it's one of the most successful shows that's going on Cartoon Network, or the sales for Surf's Up 2 has been going astronomical, and the DVDs are just flying off the shelves. Honestly, yeah, this is really starting to be the sign that we could be seeing the end of Sony Pictures Animation. And I think, like, it goes without saying that we all know for a fact that movies like the Emoji Movie and freaking The Star are basically going to be box office bombs. Like, there's like a 0.01% chance that it would actually turn out to be a hit. But seriously, there's no way that Sony could find some profit at this point. Like, I'm gonna go and try to order a coffin for them. Like, what? Like, what size are they? Large, medium, or small? I have no idea. But honestly, actually, though, some people could say that maybe there is a little bit of a chance for Smurfs: The Lost Village to find some profitability, because the budget is surprisingly cheap for an animated feature from a big-name studio, considering that it's only $60 million, and maybe it'll find some hope in the foreign box office, but other than that, yeah, I think it's safe to say that Smurfs: The Lost Village could end up as a box office flop. So I wouldn't be surprised if Sony Animation this year is going to be losing a lot of money, and it could be the end of the entire Sony Pictures Animation brand. So yeah, this could be probably a big turnoff for Sony to make more animated films in general. Who knows what could happen. Okay, so for our next story right over here, we are going to be talking about a little piece in Star Wars Celebration. Now, this is a big annual party where, like, all Star Wars fans would come in to go and celebrate everything Star Wars, on top of big announcements that are going to be going on. And of course, the biggest thing that did come out of it is the trailer for The Last Jedi, and sweet merciful Neptune, I cannot wait for that movie. But there is actually one little piece of animation that they did brought up, and it's actually a pretty cool idea. And it's apparently a new little series called Star Wars Forces of Destiny. Now, what this is that this is going to be a little mini-series which will contain several 2 to 3 minute long shorts that are going to be featuring some of the heroines of the Star Wars franchise. And this can range from all different places, not just the movies, but also from the animated series as well. Going into my source here on Variety, they mentioned that some of the heroines that they will be highlighting will include Ahsoka Tano from Star Wars Clone Wars. They also got Sabine Wren from Star Wars Rebels. And they even have the movie ones. Of course, they will feature Princess Leia from the original trilogy. They also have Jyn Erso from Rogue One. And also they have Rey from The Force Awakens and the new trilogy that we will be having. But on top of that, what is actually really fancy about these little shorts is that the voice actresses will be the original actresses that have portrayed the characters from the movies and all that stuff. You got Felicity Jones returning as Jyn Erso, you got Daisy Ridley coming back as Rey, and even some other characters will be returning as well. Like, we got Lupita Nyong'o who will be reprising her role as Maz. Now, it has stated right over here, just taking my quote, Star Wars Forces of Destiny is for anyone who has been inspired by Leia's heroism, Rey's courage, and Ahsoka's tenacity, says Kathleen Kennedy, president of Lucasfilm. We're thrilled that so many of the original actors are reprising their roles in these shorts, which capture the small moments and everyday decisions that shape who these characters are. It's a fun new way for people to experience Star Wars. So, what this basically is that these are just cute little animated shorts that are going to highlight some of Star Wars girl power. And especially nowadays, with the direction that Star Wars is going, it does lean a little bit more onto the girl power element, especially with characters like Rey, and even the spin-off films would feature Jyn Erso, and that Star Wars is focusing more on trying to bring in strong female characters, because when you do think about it, previously the only ones that they got was just let's see, they got Leia, and yeah, that's pretty much it. So they want to try to spice things up a little bit more with the new movies and TV shows and all that kind of stuff by highlighting them. And it is actually really nice that they are also bringing up a lot of the animated characters that came from the series to go and highlight them as well, bringing in Ahsoka and also Sabine. But what is probably a lot more anticipated is going to see the ones from the movies, like to see Rey featured in here, or even Jyn Erso, and especially with Princess Leia, considering that she is an icon of heroism. So who knows what could possibly happen, and it sounds actually pretty cool. As a Star Wars fan myself, I am actually really intrigued to see how these shorts are going to go, and hopefully they will try and highlight many of the characteristics of these characters so that we can learn a little bit more about characters like Rey and Jyn Erso and Princess Leia outside of the movies that we got. So who knows what could happen. It says that the shorts will premiere on Disney YouTube in July, and then there will also be a 2-part special later in the year on Disney Channel. Now, for our next story right over here, we actually got a brand new trailer from Studio Ponoc. Now, you might be familiar with the name of Studio Ponoc, considering that I have mentioned long before in a previous episode of the animation podcast that it could possibly be the spiritual successor of Studio Ghibli, especially when their first animated feature that they have coming up is going to be directed by Hiromasa Yonebayashi, who has already got massive experience at Ghibli, directing films such as The Secret World of Arrietty and When Marnie Was There. So now, he's got a brand new movie coming out, which is called Mary and the Witch's Flower, which is actually based on a Mary Stewart book called The Little Broomstick. Now, we have already gotten a little teaser trailer before, but now it looks like we got more of a full trailer, or at least one that we're seeing a lot more stuff. And basically the whole story that it's showing is mostly how is it that the flower got there to begin with, how is it that Mary ended up being the flower, and it does emphasize the whole idea of what if you have all these magical powers in one day, and then you would end up seeing Mary go on this amazing and crazy adventure. And after looking at the trailer, what I could say is that, you know, honestly, I feel like this is a giant mix between Kiki's Delivery Service and Howl's Moving Castle. Because of course with Kiki, you got the elements of the witch, where you got this little girl who's learning how to be a witch, how to fly on a broom, and, you know, able to communicate with cats and all that kind of stuff. Or I don't know. I see that there are cats involved. Maybe they will help out on Mary's journey. But this is mostly a story about a witch in training. So you got that element of Kiki right over there. But then you also got the elements of Howl's Moving Castle. And for that, I would say it's more on the visual component, especially with the massive amount of creativity that is thrown in. Some could debate that it's either Howl's Moving Castle or even Spirited Away that it feels similar, but ultimately this has a lot of creativity. It has a lot of interesting factors, a lot of originality. Who knows what could possibly happen in here? But especially I say that it could be a bit more like Howl's Moving Castle, because it does seem like it is a bit more action-packed, where it looks like there is this big battle that's going on in the similar veins of what's going on with Howl's Moving Castle, where it seems that the characters are stuck in the middle of this war. So who knows what could potentially happen right over there. And especially considering how this trailer is nothing more but just like 90 seconds long. We don't really get much information with this. But I can say right now that, holy crap, I'm actually really excited for this one. This actually looks super amazing. It looks really awesome. And especially with all the different ways that you see the creative aspect. For me, that, like, probably, like, after the minute mark in the trailer, that's where I immediately got interested. Like, you see this old woman that's completely made of water. Like, it's more like it's even more technically complex than what Ghibli already did with the river spirit in Spirited Away. It's actually really interesting. And then, like, you also got like a little Jumanji moment where, like, you got all these animals just bursting out of nowhere. And yeah, especially how it does seem like it could be a bit more of an action-packed Kiki, like where you see Mary stuck in this crazy situation that she's in. You know, it does promise that it looks like it has a lot of action. It could have a lot of heart. Who knows what could happen, but honestly, I'm really excited for this film. I'm really excited to see what Studio Ponoc has in store and how Mary and the Witch's Flower would turn out, because yeah, this could be the next Studio Ghibli that we have. Like, if Studio Ghibli immediately shuts down and we no longer have films by Isao Takahata and Hayao Miyazaki, at the very least, we do have Studio Ponoc still going with Hiromasa Yonebayashi, still continuing the great tradition. Who knows what could happen? And if you guys are excited to go see this movie as I am, and if you are in Japan, well, it's going to be released on July 8th right over there, while internationally, I don't know, who knows what could potentially happen, but we know it's going to be released on July 8th in Japan. We'll see what happens if in North America and stuff like that will get a release date. And now it is time that we shall go and end things off with AniMat's Pick of the Week. And so for this week, I decided to do something that could seem a little bit repetitive, but for what it is, oh my god, I just cannot ignore this. Like, oh my god, it is just too insane and just too weird to ignore. Because the thing is that, yes, I'm going back into the Boss Baby, and don't worry guys, this time I will not be comparing it to Donald Trump or anything like that. But like Donald Trump, it is something that is as uncomfortable and disturbing. And what I am talking about is this viral video that's going on called Cutting Open Boss Baby, What's Inside This Belly? And this is really going viral so far. As of this podcast, it has almost 4 million views. And this is coming from a YouTube channel called Toy Genie Surprises. So what this video is about, it goes on for about 12 minutes, and you basically have this head, not the body, but just the head of a Boss Baby plushie. And you got this woman, she's off camera this whole time, and she has this soft little voice as if she is talking to a 3-year-old, like, "Hey guys, today we are going to operate on the Boss Baby. We'll see what's going on in his tummy and try to pull out things from it." And, you know, she talks like that throughout the entire video, which, maybe I already said this, but it's like 12 minutes long. And basically what it is that she has this head of the Boss Baby doll on this little plastic body. It's just like this little tray, and it has this like soft stomach. And what she did, like in the first minute, she would try to shoot this thing inside the belly for some reason, and try like just cut off a little piece and just rips off the entire stomach to reveal that his innards are nothing but this giant black sludge. That's all that the Boss Baby is made of on the inside, is this black sludge. And apparently she's trying to say that the Boss Baby has a tummy ache. But anybody with common sense would look at this and like look at the Boss Baby and go, "What the fridge are you?" And throughout the entire video, it's nothing but 12 minutes of just her pulling out stuff from inside that black sludge, revealing like all different sorts of little toys and knickknacks related to the Boss Baby and a few other properties as well, like Trolls and Minecraft and all that kind of stuff. And she would have to go and pull them out one by one as if she's doing like some kind of unboxing video. I think that's the best way to put it. It's like one of the most disturbing unboxing videos I've ever seen, but it's inside the freaking Boss Baby. Like, in some way, this is like demented. And especially with how the woman speaks throughout the entire video with that little piano riff, it does have a bit of that creep factor that you would find in that Hi Stranger video. Like, like, it really does add into the creepiness where she's just having a little bit of fun, like, just trying to pick things out from that entire black sludge. And every time something does come out of the black sludge, it just feels unpleasant and uncomfortable to just look and listen to. Especially, like, you hear, like, the gross effects and the gross sounds that would come out of pulling the black sludge. It's like, "Oh, what have we here?" And then it's like, it ultimately reveals like, oh, it's this little toy. And there is another creep factor that goes into this. It's like, how is it that all these things are inside the Boss Baby to begin with? How is it that he ended up having all these toys and keychains and like chocolate that's already wrapped up, like with the little bag inside to begin with? It's just so freaking disturbing in every single way. And on top of that, what also makes it a little creepy is just the head. Like, the factor that you only have the Boss Baby's head on this little freaking tray that contains an endless pit of like black alien sludge. You know, like, because the thing is, this is not the first time that this woman would do this type of video. Like, it does make me wonder that, does she have a collection of just doll heads that she does for these videos? And that maybe this is a little past hobby that she enjoys. Like, my favorite hobby is collecting dolls. Not all of it, though. I just like to keep the heads and just decapitate them and get rid of the bodies. It's really soothing during the middle of that process. You know, honestly, everything about it, every single layer that came with it is just disturbing on the nth degree. And especially how, like, there are even some plushies inside, like in the similar veins of that Boss Baby head that she would have to keep inside tinfoil just so, I guess, the black sludge doesn't freaking contaminate it. It's just, everything about it is wrong. And like I said before, this is not the only one that this YouTuber has done. There are like several of them with trolls. There are some like with Paw Patrol characters, or even some Marvel characters. For some reason, she enjoys operating on Hulk a lot. But I just would like to mention, though, regarding the YouTube channel that actually created this, which is Toy Genie Surprise. And it's actually a really popular YouTube channel with about 2.5 million subscribers. And what this channel is, it's basically a little bit like what we got right over here, but not as creepy. It's basically just your typical toy review channel for kids, where twice a day this woman would upload a video just checking out different different toys that she has, on top of including that little voice at the same time, like, today we're going to be looking at Disney princesses. Here is Elsa, here is Aurora, and here is Jasmine. You know, all that kind of stuff. It's just, she has a more tame YouTube channel that is geared more for kids, and it's just reviewing toys and stuff like that. And on that end, I definitely do congratulate this woman for her great success on YouTube, making Toy Genie surprises. But honestly, with this though, with the whole opening thing, it's just really messed up. Really, like that's all there is to it. That's all I can just describe it, is that this is just a really, really disturbing unboxing video, where apparently you have to go and check inside the Boss Baby's innards to get your special little prize. And especially the factor that, like, it's on a little tray. Like, the body is just this tiny tray, but you get this entire black sludge that is the entire innards of the Boss Baby, and you gotta scoop it in order to get all the stuff, which I don't even know how that got into the Boss Baby's stomach to begin with. It's just disturbing altogether, and and especially the fact that it's just this black sludge that's inside, like something that would come out of a horror movie or something like that, like something from Alien. It's just, oh god, anybody would watch this, anybody with a common mind would look at it and look at the Boss Baby and say, what the fridge are you? And especially, what the fridge is this lady for being so calm and enjoying this little moment of trying to scoop out all the gross things. Oh man, it's just so nasty to think about. Good god. Oh man, if you guys really want to see it for yourself, the YouTube video is called Cutting Open Boss Baby, What's in His Belly. In fact, hold on a sec. Let me just go and list you some examples, not just that, but also, like, what are the other examples of videos that she would have of this? Like, cutting open Hulk exploding belly, what's inside? Yeah, Hulk has an exploding belly. Like, you got a lot of troll characters like Guy Diamond, Branch, Poppy. Oh, Spider-Man's belly ache. What's inside? Spiders! Oh boy! Oh, so I guess Spider-Man really is a spider, so like when you squish him, a lot of little spiders would freaking come out. Oh, let's see what you got. Oh, cutting open Paw Patrol Chase. What's inside? Yes, let's see the insides of a freaking dog. And a lot of it is just this character that she made up called Mr. Doe, which I guess is the original character, which contains like the tray of the body. And then there's also like, oh my god, some of these titles, it's like, what the fridge is this? It's like, cutting open Mr. Doe brain belly, what's inside? And the picture is just like Mr. Doe and this giant brain that is protruding out of his stomach. Cutting open Mr. Doe worms, Mr. Doe worms belly, what's inside? So I guess he has worms, and we gotta pull it out. Cutting open Mr. Doe, giant spider. What's inside? Mustard belly, gross squishies. What the fridge? Cutting money, cell phone, and remote. What the fridge is this? Did it suddenly become like one of those like videos where like you would have to cut something with a 1,000-degree knife or something like that? And then, oh my god, it's just everything about this is just why altogether. I mean, again, Toy Genie does a great job with her YouTube channel, but with the whole operation thing, all I can ask is just, what the fridge, man? Seriously, what the fridge? And that is all that I've got for this week. Thank you guys so much for listening to this episode of the Animation Podcast. You can go and find more of my work at film-book.com. Just search for Mathieu Brunet or the Animation Podcast. You can also find me on my Twitter at AniMat505. And if you have listened to this podcast on iTunes or any other podcast service, do you mind doing us a little favor and go and rate and review this episode? That would be lovely. And if you have listened to this podcast on YouTube, then hit that like button in our video and leave us a comment on your thoughts this week. Tune in next week for the latest episode of the Animation Podcast and all things animation. Thank you guys so much for listening, and until next week, see you later, dudes!